What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of Wild, episode 53, a regular YouTube video web series podcast thingy. My name's Meowth, and as usual, I'm joined by my two good friends and co-hosts, Roffle and Corbett. How are you guys doing this week?
I'm doing great. I think I got my earliest legend since I was in tryhard mode this month. Snuck in there pretty easily with a Reno Hunter, actually. So, pretty good week. Having some fun in Dumpster Legend now, and tanking, seeing how big of that number I can get. How about you, Corb?
Yeah, bigger number, better person. No, I'm doing good. I did manage to break my lamp earlier, stood on that, and so I'm using natural lighting for the first time in what feels like months at about this hour of the day. So kind of feeling very like much a vampire and things like that, but we're getting by.
Yeah, we can see you squinting. Like, is the sun in your eyes a little bit?
Yeah, it is a little bit, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I mean, personally, I took a couple days off. Like, I think I hit Legend on the 8th, which was, like, super late for me, right? I think it's, like, one of the latest times that I've hit Legend since the big change. But I just, like, took 6 days off of playing Hearthstone. Like, not even streaming it. I just, like, didn't play Hearthstone for 6 days. Like, it was a really nice break. I was feeling burnt out, and now I'm back, and I'm, like, enjoying Hearthstone again, not getting super salty. Getting a little bit salty when the opponent has the Reno on 6, you know? But other than that, like, I've took a little bit of a break, but I'm back, and it feels really good. So I think everybody needs one of those every once in a while.
Sometimes some time away can make you appreciate the game a little bit more, and never a bad thing.
Yeah, I never want to stay too far away from patches. He just loves me so much that he always wants to show up, and I feel like I need to be there for him as well.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So this week, we've got a pretty fun episode. We're going to be doing a recap of Forged in the Barrens. Basically, how impactful was this set on the WoW format looking back? And we get to laugh. I mean, last time when we were talking about our predictions from Darkmoon Fair, we had a pretty good laugh going back and looking at how wrong we were. So we're going to go back and look at all that. Ruffle getting off a little bit easy because he didn't have to make those predictions. But next expansion, we're gonna come back and laugh at Ruffle. I'm excited. But before we get into all of that, we do need to take care of a couple of housekeeping things. So first things first, just a reminder to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the content. It's a small thing, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast distributor. Hit that subscribe button. It's a small thing, but it does actually support us a ton.
You can also support us by becoming a Patreon over on patreon.com/stateofwild. Like to thank a few of our recent new patrons this week, including Beth Hunter, Benjamin Gappa at the Epic tier, and Jeffrey Pierce at the Legendary tier.
And if you are a patron, you can always link your Discord account and your Patreon to get a whole bunch of added extra benefits when you come join the State of Wild Discord server. And hey, if you're not even a patron, doesn't matter. Come join. It's still a great community. A lot of talk about Wild Hearthstone and life in general. So come join. It's a great place to hang out.
Housekeeping stuff out of the way. Let's hop into first of all, the news of the week, and then our normal podcast content. And I say news because, I mean, we got like a small little special announcement yesterday that I feel like is worth mentioning. So Alec Dawson, one of the lead game designers on Hearthstone, tweeted out yesterday, there are a few balance changes coming next week. 3 cards in total, looking at Generation and Burst Healing in Priest and hitting some of the non-games in Druid. So just to clarify, these are standard nerfs that Alec is talking about. And so for those of you guys that don't know much about the standard metagame, these are looking like nerfs targeted towards Control Priest in standard. Kind of what a lot of people refer to as created by Priest, right? For better or for worse. And then some of the non-games in Druid, probably the aggro druid or the token druid, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of people are thinking about Gibberling and druid, which is a little bit sad. The priest one's a little bit maybe up in the air, but I think a lot of people are leaning towards Apotheosis and Renew. And so, I mean, I'm going to start with Corbett. You're much more in tune with standard than I think the two of us combined. So what do you think about what's going to be changed, and how impactful do you think it's going to be for the WoW format? I guess is like the big picture question after that.
Yeah, so like this is definitely a nerf that I wasn't quite sure whether they were gonna do it because the time frame was so tight, right? The new expansion's coming around, but man, it's not great when a lot of your content creators who do hang out in that top 1000 legend are super pissed off and just depressed because Control Priest is a very exclusive high legend problem, and that just happens to be where a lot of your favorite streamers and YouTube people often hang out, and often play. So we are getting it, which is exciting. Some people have floated out the idea of Raise Dead and palm reading. Those would probably be more impactful for Wild, right? If it happens to be those, because Raise Dead obviously, also hits Dark Lair. I don't think it's as likely because Raise Dead's a much weaker card in Control Priest, and I doubt they want to hit Warlock as well. Palm reading though, maybe we could see that. But yeah, likely it'll be Renew, Apoth, Gibbling. Probably doesn't impact Wild that much, right? Like the big thing is Aggro Druid. Aggro Druid takes a massive step back, and that's already a deck that's fallen off a little bit in Wild. It's not nearly as popular as it was some time ago, but I think a Gibbling nerf would do a ton of damage. That's like one of your best cards there. As for Apoth, not really played that much in Wild, and Renew is solid in both Big Priest and Reno Priest. It's played in about half the decks on ladder that play them. About half the list for those archetypes, but it's pretty replaceable, so it's not really a big deal, I don't think. It does mean that you're probably less likely to play the Zyrella package in Reno Priest and just go back to the old normal version without Zyrella, I think.
Yeah, I'm a little sad to see Gibberling potentially being nerfed, just because not only Aggro Druid, but like, man, the Token Druid that I've been in love with for like a long time.
Yeah.
It does mean that we probably go back to like the Oaken Summons package, which is fine, right?
For sure.
Vargoth into a 5/10 is never going to not be good, but man, I don't want to play normal Oaken Summons. I want to play Gibberlings and do dumb things. Just another collateral damage from standard. It's a little bit sad, but yeah, I don't think the priest changes are going to do much.
I'm not to rain on your parade here, but I'm of a different mind of this. I think that, like, to Alex's point, I think Gibberling, even in Wild, does create a lot of non-games similar to what the Pirate package does for Aggro Druid as well. So limiting its ability to have blowout turn ones, I think, is kind of a good thing. I don't think it needs to means of winning the game that early like it has with both the Gibberling and the Pirate package. The deck is fast enough as it is. So yes, it's kind of a casualty for Wild, but like, even if the deck isn't relevant, it still feels pretty helpless to lose to their nut draws. And to a certain extent, that's always been the case for that type of aggro druid. But I feel like with the release of Gibberling, the high roll, like the variance of the deck is much greater because it's either that blowout turn one or, fairly typical aggro druid curve. So probably not a necessary change in terms of like the overall format, but for that deck in particular, I don't see it as necessarily a bad thing. Priest getting hit in Wild, probably not terribly relevant unless for some reason the card generation that they're talking about is, like Corb said, what either Palm Reading or Raise Dead. Palm Reading in particular could slow down some of the Big Priest nonsense, but I don't know how much that will change the metagame just because it's not as popular of a deck as it has been in the past. So in general, I expect it to be the Gibberling Renew Apotheosis combination, just based on the content of his tweet. Like, those are the cards that fit the bill there. So probably not heavily impactful for Wild, but honestly, I think Wild is kind of in a fun place right now. Other than that's easy for me to say, not queuing into Dark Lair very often, but I'm enjoying myself, so I think it'll be fine until the expansion hits.
Yeah. I think Renew's particularly likely because it also happens to hit Wandmaker. It also basically nerfs Zyrella, and so it's kind of like with one card, you're kind of hitting a lot of things that people have issues with in Priest with one particular change, and so I think that's more likely.
Yeah, you'd probably just bump it up to 2 mana so you're not getting it off of Wandmaker and it doesn't like fill out your curve so cleanly.
I don't care about Aggro Druid. I get your argument in Aggro Druid, but I like my little off meta darling in Token Druid, and get it nerfed is a little bit sad, even if it's for the better.
I feel like calling it an off meta darling is a little bit
wild,
underrating the deck a little bit. For a period, it was the better aggressive Druid deck, was it not? Like,
yeah,
I still think it is, but
I don't doubt that, but people are attached to the aggro druid. It is a little bit faster, but maybe less consistent because, like I mentioned, it's very high roll dependent now. So
Yeah.
I think that maybe it makes people actually play a good version of Token Druid for a period of time.
I mean, I do like that I never have to think again about whether I want to play Gibbling or Orokin. Like, that decision is now made for me. Assuming that they do hit Gibbling. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much, but pretty likely, but we'll see.
All right. So, I mean, we kind of glossed over this in this conversation, and we kind of glossed over it last week. I mean, do we just want to do like a short little discussion about the meta? I mean, I think post mini set nerfs and ban of Stealer of Souls, if it has settled, it does feel like it's in a pretty solid spot, right? You mentioned Darkglare. Darkglare, I think, still probably one of, if not the best deck in the format. Super popular at High Legend. But in general, nothing really to complain about. I mean, I'm sure I could find something to complain about.
It feels like the meta has definitely slowed down and become much more greedy, I would say.
At least on NA, yeah.
It definitely feels like that. Like, I feel like I don't know exactly what happened. It might just be as simple as Mutanus. Like, I feel like Mutanus has kind of opened up a lot of these Reno decks, or even the ice fishing package in Shaman. Everything just feels like we're seeing more Reno. We're seeing more alignment druid. There's a lot more of that kind of stuff going on, but that could just be my experience. What do you guys think so far?
No, I think that I was actually going to go to the same point, that I think that Mutanus has slowed things down to the point where, like, we've had this conversation since Flurgle Toxfin came out, or rather since Mutanus came out, is that, like, things have clearly slowed down because I've been seeing a lot of people running Mutanus as their third Murloc in a Reno Shaman with the Flurgle Toxfin. So I think that is a direct nod to, like, an uptick in Reno decks. I've gotten to the point now where when I queue into Mage, it's no longer a given that it's Mizaki or Seeker Mage. I've been queuing into a fair number of LPG mages as well that themselves are running Mutanus. So when you have the consequence of a board clear as powerful as Flurgle Toxfin and as prevalent as Flurgle Toxfin is, it's going to slow some things down a little bit, just because of the strength of the card. And so if there are a lot more slower Shaman decks, you can start bringing out decks that are slower than that to kind of outvalue it in the late game. So those are where your Reno Lock and your Reno Mage are going to excel a little bit into that Galakrond mid-rangey deck in particular.
Yeah, I was going to make that same point that you were about. I don't think Mutanus has slowed down the meta. I think Flurgle Talks with the Ice Fishing and Dungeoneer has slowed down the meta. And as a result, that's why we're seeing more Mutanus. But I got hosted by Theo yesterday, and I was talking to him a little bit. He plays on EU. And he was talking about all that he's seeing on EU is Darkglare Warlock and like Mizaki Mage and Seeker Mage. Like, that's all he's seeing on EU, which is kind of very different than what we're seeing over on our server, right?
If you're seeing a lot of greedy Reno decks, the response to that would be a Mizaki in that case. And if they're not
Darkglare,
if they're not honest enough, then the Darkglare comes in as well. So it could be like just the cycle between the different servers as well. Those are a combination of the good decks in the format that are just kind of rotating around each other.
Yeah. I will say, with Mutanus being more popular, I am queuing into a lot more Mutanus mirrors. And I'm not going to lie, it feels kind of frustrating to have a lot of matchups decided about like what gets Mutanus and what doesn't. It's very similar to like back in the early days of Wild, where it's like, oh, what did the gnome hit? The random gnome on 2, what did it hit? Or what did the dirty rat hit? Did I rat the Nazoth, or did I rat a Doomsayer, right? So it feels kind of akin to that, but again, I don't think it's super popular just yet, or like at the point where like it's kind of annoying, but I can totally see it getting to that point, because like it's one of those cards, right? It's one of those cards like Ticketus. It's kind of like Gnome Feratu, where like, well, if I get lucky and I eat the Reno or I eat the Nazoth, then I just kind of like auto win the matchup, right? So
yeah, I lost a game to an errant Mutanus earlier, and I I did a little molding, and chat reminded me of the fact that it is very similar to Ticketus, where it's a card that's probably going to lose people more games than not, but it's a fun card, so they're going to keep jamming it into their decks, and so that's just kind of a consequence of it. If things do slow down, it actually probably becomes a rather good card. So there's some argument for it. I think it has less of a downside in most decks than Ticketus does in Reno Lock still. So you're probably going to see it a lot more often, especially if you're squeezing in a new Zoth or package to give yourself additional layers of threats.
All right. So all in all, meta in a pretty good spot, at least for Wild. So let's go ahead and move on to kind of the main content. We're going to do a recap of Forged in the Barrens. But before we hop into that, speaking of the new expansion, United in Stormwind, card reveals for that will not be starting until the 20th of this month. So that means that next week, we're not going to have any new cards to talk about. So we're going to do something a little bit different for next week. We're going to be doing kind of like a mailbag / AMA episode. So if you guys have any questions about anything related to Wild Hearthstone or the three of us, right? Any sorts of questions, make sure you guys leave them down in the chat. You can tweet us on Twitter, hit us up in the Discord. Anything like that. If you guys have any questions, let us know. We'll pick the best of the best, and we'll do kind of a mailbag episode next week and shake things up a little bit. So if you're interested in that, make sure you guys leave your comments down below. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about Forged in the Barrens. We talked about how impactful this was for a first expansion of the year. We were very surprised. And we talked about that because of how many cards got nerfed, right? And so I just want to talk a little bit of a quick recap. So Forged in the Barrens came out very quickly. We got a lot of nerfs to Far Watchpost, Morshan Watchpost, Sword of the Fallen, and I think a couple of other cards as well. Penflinger, Jandis, Deck of Lunacy, I think were like the first big changes. And then we got another wave of changes to Crab Rider, Hysteria, First Day of School, Mancrick, Springwater. Right. We also had Sword nerfed in that first one, so we had two big waves of nerfs. But we actually had more cards that weren't in Forged in the Barrens get nerfed than actual Forged in the Barrens cards.
Yeah.
Which was kind of crazy. But if you look at it, like there were also a bunch of those that were from like Descent of Dragons, whatever that mini set was called. So it wasn't like they were old cards, right?
Oh, Madness of the Darkmoon Fair.
Darkmoon Races.
Darkmoon Races.
Darkmoon Races, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Darkmoon Races. That's the one.
You're living in the past, man.
So, I mean, let's just run through all the cards that got nerfed, right? We had Far Watchpost, Morshan Watchpost, and as a result, we also had, like, I guess, Kargal, like the legendary that's related to Watchpost, also technically got nerfed. Sword of the Fallen, the Paladin Secret Weapon, Mancrick, Refreshing Springwater was 4 mana, APM Mage, Corbett's baby.
Oh, my heart.
Penflinger eventually got nerfed. He no longer is super prevalent. Jandis went from 5 to 6. I think that's the one out of all of these that we're going to talk about that like makes me the saddest. 6 mana Jandis just is weird. Deck of Lunacy from 2 to 4. Crab Rider no longer has permanent Wind Fury. Hysteria went from 3 to 4 and is probably still the most busted AoE spell. First Day of School actually got nerfed twice, from 0 mana add 2 to 1 mana add 3 to 1 mana add 2. And then Hand of Adul went from 2 mana +2/+2 draw a card to 2 mana +2/+1 draw a card. So yeah, a lot of nerfed cards. Damn. I'm looking at this list and it's like, was this really only one expansion?
Yeah.
Right. Like we've kind of talked about this before, but Forged in the Barren was such a strong expansion that it became not so, like, because so many cards got nerfed from it that it's almost like, well, we're just back to where we started, and it's it was too strong out the gate, and just it was the tortoise and the hare, man. It was the hare just blasting out of the gates, and you can't keep that pace forever. So there's a lot of cards that were immediately super popular in the format and just brought back down to I would say probably a reasonable level. Some of them were maybe a little bit, even in Wild, a little bit overtuned, and even with a card like Crab Rider may, and First Day of School to a lesser extent, may have been to prior to the expansion, and then additional cards got, or the additional cards from Fortune and the Baron kind of brought those over the top. So we ended up, kind of back where we started with more in line with what a typical expansion you might expect in terms of shaking up the wild format. Yes, the new cards get added, but for the most part, it's like refining existing archetypes a lot of times, as well as, one or two archetypes that kind of shoot up in terms of their strength as a result of a few crucial new cards from the set as well. So fairly typical. Overall, I think I'm mostly happy with a lot of these changes. Jandis, like Meow said, was a bit of a bummer just because it wasn't super impressive in Wild, not nearly on the same level as Standard. But most of these, were probably good, healthy changes even for the Wild format.
Yeah, pretty much every single one of these is still managing to see play in Standard. A lot of them are still managing to see play in Wild. With the exception basically being Deck of Lunacy, which is like the one that they dropped off the hardest, which was very intentional, right? That was the card that they intentionally wanted to not make it that playable anymore. And so yeah, I really like a lot of these changes in general. They did deliver a whole bunch of new archetypes, and that first couple months really did a lot. They did so much for Wild and sort of introducing these new archetypes. We had Handbuff Paladin kind of become one of the most dominant decks of all time in the Wild format. Like, it had an incredible matchup spread, incredible win rate. After picking up a whole bunch of new stuff, we had Tax Paladin, which managed to survive the Watch Post nerf and the Sword nerf somehow, and is still kind of running around, still being pretty good. So there was a whole bunch of stuff like that. We got like Cute Warlock. That was another archetype that started to pop up here and there, and is still kind of running around a little bit under the radar. And so yeah, we still managed to get a whole bunch of new stuff really introduced in the format.
And
in addition to the
Shaman
just
as well.
and Murloc Shaman, yeah, reinvigorated. Yeah, in addition to a whole bunch of previously pretty established archetypes getting a little bit of a boost.
God, Tax Paladin's still, like you said, still kind of nuts, right?
I say it all the time still.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's kind of hard to remember that, like, we also, with this expansion, also had all the unnerfs that happened like a couple weeks after or before, and we also had the brand new core set, right? So the core set brought Talon, which is like insane in a lot of decks. It had Runthak, which ended up being pretty good in Handbuff Paladin. It's a new Alex Straza, right? So many new cards.
Oh, I didn't even mention APM Mage. Oh my god.
Yeah, APM Mage and Mizaki Mage with Refreshing Spring Water. Like,
I forgot my favorite. Oh god.
Was it really your favorite if you forgot it?
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
I mean, let's just talk a little bit more about like some of the brand new decks that came out of this expansion, right? So we had all the Death Battle stuff for Demon Hunter, right? And like, while the non-odd version of that deck didn't end up taking off, I mean, I had success at the beginning of the expansion. Corbett's been having success recently. I think you hit what, rank 3 legend with Death Battle Odd Demon Hunter?
I got the 3. I felt like I was closing in on 1. I was so close.
So like, that whole package with Blackthorn ended up being absolutely nuts, right? That card's disgusting.
I'll say I had some pretty good success with a Reno version of running the Death Rattle package as well. It really can apply pretty consistent pressure that locks opponents out of the game, and then you just have like Zeph, Alex, or Nazoth as a pretty solid finisher. I was surprised at how well the deck did for me.
Yeah, I mean, whether you want to play defensive or aggressive, like, that card is just nuts. It cheats so much mana. It's so good. I mean, if we look at Druid, I mean, we can just like walk through the classes, right? Druid got Celestial Alignment this expansion. Like, it literally, that one card, this one expansion, kind of just kicked Aviana Kun combo to the side, right? Like, just not worth playing that anymore because you have Celestial Alignment.
Yeah, exactly. It frees up some other like atypical combos that you can do too, just because you're able to cheat so much mana with it. So it's like, I think there was a fair amount of fatigue from the player base with the Aviana Kun combo. I think that it's maybe a little bit nostalgic, but like very repetitive to have that. Like, if we're gonna have that for another 5 years, is that really a good thing? So alignment's not super strong, and I think it's okay to have something else as an option to get off your Druid combo.
Yeah. And then Hunter, I mean, I guess Hunter didn't really get anything great from this expansion, but it got Buzzard from the unnerves in the core set, right? So Buzzard's nuts.
It got Dreadscale Poisonous on a fairly consistent basis. Like, that is somewhat useful. It's
like
cute.
from the mini set. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the Fellwing revert. You know, if we're gonna give it a little something, even
fair
Hunter.
enough. Buzzard plus Fellwing.
Plus
But
one health.
those aren't from the new expansion, right? Those are from...
No, but yeah, it's so hard. Like the reverts and everything. It all just happened at once. It's sort of just like one big thing in my head.
It's basically part of the reverts. The reverts are basically part of the expansion, right? Because they've happened basically at the same time. And then Mage, like refreshing spring water with Incanter's Flow, like APM Mage, Mizaki Mage, right? Kind of driven that whole thing. Was Oasis ally forged in the Barrens?
It was.
One of the most powerful secrets in Secret Mage now, right? Maybe not most powerful, but definitely one of the most popular. It's kind of like the standard fourth secret now.
I think it's probably worth running. It's more consistent than Netherwind and probably worth running in that place.
So yeah, Oasis ally, pretty strong addition to the format from Forged, and then again, APM Mage, Mizaki Mage, and then the Dragons, an LPG Mage, right? Dragoncaster, Revert, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, Revert, new Alexstrasza, right? So a bunch of buffs to a wide variety of Mage archetypes from this expansion. So much love to Mage from Forged in the Barrens. And then we look at Paladin. We've already talked about Tax Paladin and Hand Buff Paladin as kind of... It still baffles me, dude, that Hand Buff Paladin was this expansion. Because it feels like...
I thought you were going to say it still baffles you that Conviction does 6 damage for 1 mana. Because,
nothing really baffles me anymore because, like, you were talking about how, like, Broomstick sees 0 play in Standard. Raised Dead's not even that good in Standard. So, like, I don't even know, like, what's good in Standard. So, like, whatever. Conviction can be absolutely bonkers in our format, but whatever. It's not seeing play in Standard, so it's fine.
Conviction alone, like, helped bolster Odd Paladin, which was already a very strong deck, and got not only good reach damage, but also a way to tutor that in Night of Anointment, which is very.
Oh my god, Night of Anointment was this mentioned too. Holy crap! Yeah, Night of Anointment gets in like every Paladin deck now too. Night, Conviction, all the hand buff cards. God, another good expansion for Paladin too. So looking at Priest, I think the only big thing that Priest got was, Talon and Reno Priest, and then kind of Xyrella for Reno Priest as well, which took a while to be adopted. Am I missing anything in Priest?
I think Conviction is something that'll become a little bit of a staple, maybe in Reno Priest. I think that's a good card. Not Conviction.
Condemn.
Sorry.
Condemn.
Condemn. That's the one. They both begin with C, or the same thing.
And I've actually been toying around with a Interfire combo Priest.
Oh
recently.
yeah.
I played that. Really got a lot from Power Word Fortitude. I think that there's some refinement to be had there, but like that Fortitude is pretty nutty in that type of deck. And I think people are pretty consistently, Corby, you've talked about this before, but people are pretty consistently underrating Devouring Plague as well. I think that's just a pretty solid card. I don't know if it's a 30 best card slot, but never unhappy about generating that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Priest's not as big of a winner as Paladin and Mage, but again, getting some pretty impactful cards that I think are going to be seeing play for a foreseeable future in our format. Some key players, and then Rogue. Let's talk about Rogue. So Rogue was like kind of reeling from that Nitro Boost nerf that happened like 2 weeks before the new expansion, but then Rogue got this card called Field Contact that allows you to draw 1,000,000 cards in a turn when you're playing like Miracle Rogue. So that alone means that Rogue got the best card from the new set for sure. But other than that,
also got Octobot,
which is this expansion. Yeah. So that Miracle Rogue, that Baitweed deck from Corbett got a lot of buffs, but if we're looking at like Odd Rogue and Kingsbane as like the other two decks, Kingsbane got Blade Flurry, Revert, partial Revert, and then Odd Rogue's got like Yoink. If you want to,
Kingsbane picked up like both the poison cards and the good stab, so it got some stuff. And I also think Scabs is, we're already seeing some Pillage Rogue buzz. I don't think Pillage Rogue is very good right now, but I think it can be really good in the future. Like I think that's definitely that whole Scabs package is something to keep an eye out moving forward. Because much like APM Mage, it's like, this is close. Like this can actually be really disgusting and bring out turn 4 or turn 5 lethals if it gets a little bit better.
Yeah, and with that, I think Shroud of Concealment has really proven to be a strong card for that type of combo deck, just because it specifically tutors minions. And I think that you mentioned the poisons, but I think in particular Silverleaf Poison was maybe a little bit undervalued in terms of, does Kingsbane need more card draw? And I think something else that was missed was the fact that it stacks, so it has the potential to do some pretty silly things. So yeah, I think Rogue got quite a bit this expansion, maybe more than anticipated, and not in the places where people were expecting, because I think it's taken a while for Scabs to show where he has his uses. I think, like you said, it's probably not there yet. I played a bit of the deck very recently, but it's one of those. It's a matter of time.
Yeah.
It feels like, just based upon like the example of I couldn't remember any rogue cards off the top of my head. It feels like it got a lot of, besides Scabs, right? It feels like it got a lot of fringe cards for that, especially for Kingsbane, right? I feel like Paralytic Poison and Silverleaf are cards that, if something comes along that's marginally better, you just cut them, right? And so, got some role players, but nothing insanely good.
I think it's the subtlety of their usefulness that I think that they're not standout cards necessarily. So I definitely could see them being replaced in the future, but they are. I think they're a little bit more than fringe. I think that they're very good cards that, if better cards get printed, will get removed. But they seem to be performing quite well.
All right, so let's move on to Shaman. I think we can just skip the whole. Okay, we shouldn't skip. At the very beginning of Fortune and Barrens, we got a bunch of Murloc Shaman cards. Murloc Shaman, consistently tier 1, tier 2 deck. Nobody plays it.
Nope.
Tell me if you've heard that story before. But
yep. I've been seeing a lot of it pop up recently.
Have?
I think bots have swapped over to it.
Oh no,
could be a little bit of it. But yeah, it's been incredibly popular for me, at least recently.
But yeah, at least at High Legend, nobody plays it, right? Nobody plays Odd Demon Hunter or Odd Rogue or Odd Paladin just because, again, stop me if you heard this story before. People just don't enjoy playing them, even though they're insanely strong decks. So yeah, Murloc Shaman, I think, got 9 new cards from Fortune.
It got a deck, it got a whole thing.
Yeah, Murloc Shaman's the thing. But most importantly, Firemancer Flurgle, because when we fast forward to the mini set and we get Dungeoneer and a way to draw Ice Fishing consistently, we now have access, probably the best board clear in the history of Wild, which is saying something, right? With Ice Fishing into Firemancer Flurgle plus Toxin, one-sided, potentially repeatable board wipe. Yeah, Shaman, I think, especially once we got to the mini set, we haven't even gotten to Warlock and Warrior, but I don't even think we need to say that Shaman was the biggest winner of this expansion. And we talked about Mage and Paladin getting absurd amounts of cards. God, Shaman was in the dumpster, right, before this whole expansion came out, right? Because Priest was super popular, and Shaman had even Shaman and Big Shaman. And then Fortune the Barrens and the mini set happened, and you're just okay, dude, Shaman is... it was the most popular class. I don't know if it still is at this point in Legend, but it is back with a bang.
Yeah, so last time we did a VS report in January, February, so before the expansion came out. Shaman was the third least played class, basically tied with Hunter and Demon Hunter at 3%. So those three classes were basically non-existent. Mm-hmm. And Hunter and Shaman in particular were really bad, because if you really want to play Demon Hunter, you could play old Demon Hunter. It was fine. But Shaman and Hunter felt like they had nothing. So Shaman went from 3% play rate at Legend, and it's currently at about 17%. It's the second most popular class at Diamond 10. Basically all of ladder, it's the second most popular class right behind Mage. And so yeah, it is definitely the massive winner from this whole expansion.
And so then let's go ahead and recap on Warlock and Warrior. So Warlock, we mentioned Cute Lock, right, with some of the new cards that they got, but really, looking at the whole Warlock package that was centered around the self-mill strategy.
Yeah.
Well, backing up a little bit, Cute Lock didn't get any new cards this expansion.
They got the new Bane of Doom, Bane of Ritual.
So that was from the core set, though. Yeah. So that was.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that wasn't from Fortune the Barrens itself, but
it got the new Zero Drop, right? I don't know if that was also core set.
That was core set. Okay. Yeah.
So the 0 mana spell and the new Zero Drop demon.
Zero Drop? That was out for a while, I think.
Yeah, that's been out for a while.
Am I?
That's Skullomance, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so it got Ritual of Doom, which was,
Yeah.
dude,
Which of course
they all blend together, man.
yeah. Well, I mean, Corset in particular was released at the same
Yeah.
time, wasn't it? Or was that when the
It
others
was.
happened?
It
I don't know.
was.
It
Yeah, it
really
was.
wasn't.
But hey,
wasn't
Meowth, it got Tamsin. Hey, Tamsin's a good card. So
Wow, dude,
I mean,
in
Tamsin is
Darkglare.
a good card
Yeah.
in Darkglare, yes.
Yeah.
yes.
I still remember people telling me that Tamsin wouldn't see play in Darkglare because she's not needed.
I said that, but
I'm
I don't
definitely
know
not
anything.
people either. I don't,
No,
so-
I absolutely am people. I said that. I completely overlooked the fact that it gets a lot of reach from shadow spells, or how much basically I underestimated how much 8 times 2 is what it comes down to.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that. It's also like the Drain Souls, the Solarians, the everything. That card just has so much synergy. Okay, so we got Tamsin from Forge in the Barrens, and then we got Ritual of Doom from the core set. Like, the self-mill stuff is currently a meme. Might not be a meme with the new Warlock quest, but other than that, are we missing anything from Warlock? I mean,
Stealer of Souls.
Yeah, there's one pretty big thing that you're
that
overlooking
card's
there.
banned. We don't talk about cards that got banned, okay?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, yes, there was the shenanigan with Stealer of Souls that led to the first ban in Hearthstone history. Yeah, but
minor details.
Minor details. It got banned, so it doesn't exist. So, anything else from Warlock though? Did Warlock get a pretty crappy extension?
Warlock got a terrible expansion. There's a reason Warlock has just been like a joke and standard for the longest time right now, and it just keeps on getting crappy cards.
Well, yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of the cards were dedicated to that self-mill package that really hasn't paid off yet because Niru just isn't it. The 3 mana the Blood Shard Bristleback and the Baron Scavenger, those seem to have a lot more potential than the Niru, especially if you can get, I don't know, some way to add those back to hand, in particular the Scavenger. If you can like dump multiple copies of those in a turn, aside from just 2, I think that deck has some real potential. And then of course with the quest line you have like a legitimate win condition.
So Corb, I guess you're much more in tune with standard than I am, but I mentioned this on stream, and I think I might have mentioned on the podcast, where like it feels like so much of standard for the past standard Warlock for like the past year and a half has been tied to Darkglare, right? Like with cards that synergize with self damage and this whole Darkglare package. And do you think the fact that they had to nerf it because of Wild has like severely hamstrung Warlock in standard for the past year? And like if they had bans back then, would standard Warlock be in a much better spot if they had just like banned Darkglare in our format?
Hard to say exactly because like I think currently in the current year there isn't enough for like a Zoo archetype. Right now I think it's missing too much. But if you had gone like the back half of last year, I think it's definitely possible where like Zoo could have definitely been a real deck for a long time. That said, the meta wasn't super great towards that kind of style of deck for a long time because you had things like Soul Demon Hunter and Risky Skipper, which tended to push out a lot of the more early game board centric stuff. But yeah, I definitely think, if we had gone back in time, Darkglare would have been the first ban, ideally, I think. And they would have just kept it as is. Because, like you said, a lot of the cards did synergize with that package, and they still are. They still printed the 2 mana deal 6 excess goes to your hero in the recent expansion. So they're still pumping out that kind of support, but it wouldn't have helped, I don't think, this current situation. Because, like Roffle said, a lot of the cards were dedicated to this mill package, and yeah, that just wasn't great.
Was it great? All right, Warlock not great. Warrior though, I think got some pretty hot stuff this expansion. So I mean, let's just start off with Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior getting, let's start with from the core set, Fogsail Freebooter, the 2 mana 2/2 deal 2 if you have a weapon equipped, and you also have the new 1-drop 2/1. Bloodsail Deckhand, I think is the name. The 1 mana 2/1 discount a weapon by 1. And then from the actual expansion, you got Rokara, which ended up being absolutely bonkers in Pirate Warrior, and I think a lot of us missed that, myself included. And then Outrider's Axe, which is, I think, we were kind of high on this card, and it kind of lived up to its billing in Pirate Warrior specifically. So Pirate Warrior itself getting a huge boost and buff from this latest expansion. And so then moving into, let's say, the control shells, right? Whether the risky skipper shells of the world. You had Stonewall Anchormans, I believe, were from this expansion. So you had Sourfang, which has spawned this like frenzy demon hunter, or not demon hunter, the frenzy Dead Man's Hand package of cards. You had the unnerfs to like Bloodsworn Mercenary as well, and charge, opening up a lot of room. You had the turtle that got released in the mini set. So it feels like Warrior got a lot of tools, right? Mutanus for Odd Warrior as well. So yeah, lots of really really cool tools. I mean, we had Rush Warrior before Crab Rider got nerfed, because you had conditioning as like the upgradable spell. So lots of really really cool cards. And Warrior, I mean, especially we always talk about Pyre Warrior because it's like the central focus of Warrior's identity and WoW, but a lot of the slower Warrior stuff got some pretty cool unique tools moving forward as well.
Well, I mean, Outrider's Axe was such a good card that it just kind of slots into both a Dead Man's type deck and a Pirate Warrior. It's almost like a more expensive, bigger Fiery War Axe, where it's just like a flexible enough card that you can just slot it into good Warrior decks.
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of the archetypes that you're talking about, Pirate Warrior, Dead Man's Hand, Odd Warrior, those are the very established ones, but I think this expansion also gave a lot for something in the future, much in the same way that we were talking about Scabs as being maybe a future thing. I think like Hand Buff Warrior is really, really close. I think that deck is so close to being in a like a popping off like a Hand Buff Paladin. It's really not far away. It just needs like a little bit more card draw, I think, and a little bit more. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of the most fun decks I played early on in this expansion. I think it got hit even harder than Hand Buff Paladin with the Crab Rider nerf, just because that was kind of its win condition, because not only did it get to like bash face, but it also like you just kind of shoved in an ETC for some early chip damage just because it's attacking twice with ETC, so that's like +2 extra damage to each swing. So yeah, that was a really sweet deck, and like it was surprisingly quite viable despite prior to the Crab Rider change. So
shoutouts to Romano. We have to shout him out for kind of pioneering the Hand Buff Warrior in Wild. I mean, just neutral cards. Can we talk about Samuro and like its impact on the Wild format and like how insane it's been? It's so good.
It's fallen off a little bit recently just because Hand Buff Paladin is less prevalent, but like that was another card that really had the potential to get abused by Hand Buff Warriors. So the fact that it remains and it gives that deck some maybe hope for the future. But yeah, that was a lot of decks were just shoving in a Samuro for a while. It's a good card if you can give it some extra stats.
Yeah, the neutrals weren't like too much of a standout, I think. I mean, we did like, okay, so we got like Samuro, we got Mutanus, we got Kazakus, which a lot of people really like in various Reno decks in particular. But we also got things like Kindling Elemental, which didn't shine immediately, but has sort of popped off a little bit with some of the Shaman stuff that's going on right now. Watch Posts, they went away for a long time. But they're coming back in standard right now. It's kind of a hint. Maybe we dropped off. Maybe we like got rid of the Watch Post a little bit too early, because they're performing really well in standard Rush Warrior and standard Death Rattle Demon Hunter, and so maybe Watch Post can come back in things like LPG or Tax Pally or a lot of these other decks that were initially using it, and maybe they should revisit it.
Roffle anti-Watch Post very strongly. I did know that you were going to mention Kindling Elemental. Corbett absolutely loves this silly little 1-drop and is convinced that it's going to be broken.
It is broken. Not one day, Meowth. It is broken. It's busted.
I think that within the neutrals too, there's also Deathside Cultist, which is a pretty solid card. Lushwater Scout is incredible. And then everyone's favorite high roll of Injured Marauder off of Oaken Summons.
Oh yeah, the 5/10. Oh no, yeah. The 5/10. Yeah.
Oh yes, the 5/10.
I always play it. Mine always seems to be a 5/4, but my opponents always seem to be a 5/10. I don't know what like bug this is, but they should look into it. I mean, so yeah, looking back, I think especially after we looked at some of the buffs that ended up coming like halfway through, specifically the buff to N'Zoth. I know that's not a Fortune the Barrens card, but it feels like a Fortune the Barrens card because it wasn't ever seeing play until yeah they buffed it halfway through our expansion. I mean, so like looking back though, it feels like I don't know, this expansion was pretty damn good even after the nerfs. I feel like, especially for Wild, it introduced a couple of brand new archetypes, plus it introduced a brand new class in the Shaman class to the format. So I think you have to say that it was a pretty impactful expansion.
Our expectations were so much lower, like heading in. I remember being super down, just being like, I don't know how to theorycraft any of this. Like, this doesn't feel right. It feels like this is gonna be, just super low impact, and it just did not turn out that way. Especially when it came to the mini set as well. Halfway through all the changes that we got and all these new archetypes, because the fact that we named off 3, 4, 5 like decks that were basically either completely new or risen from the dead, that's like pretty above average for Wild. And maybe hopefully with like the mini set and things like that, hopefully that's kind of the norm moving forward to me.
Yeah, I think I would be pleased if aside from nerfs, bans, and that type of thing, and the radical changes, but if the net result of every expansion were the same as Fortune and the Barrens, I think I would be rather pleased with where it is in the Wild format. Kind of like you said, going into the expansion, I also wasn't too high on it. It felt kind of uninspired. It didn't seem like the cards were relatively strong, and it was just like, well, maybe it's just a Rastakhan's 2.0. That's okay. We've got the core set. We've got the unnerves. There's still some new stuff. But it really did end up being a lot of these Fortune and the Barrens cards that shined. And perhaps a few too brightly, as we saw by all the nerfs. But, like, yeah, we underestimated it, or at least I did. I think a lot of people really underestimated the set. And it turned out to be quite impactful. Shook things up for quite some time. And it also saw a shift in kind of the devs team's protocol in terms of their willingness to not only ban a card but also answer something and iterate over those changes over the course of a few different patches, in the case of like Paladin in particular, and specifically first day of school, but even things like incremental nerfs to a Hand of Vidal, and changing multiple cards slightly until the class was in a better spot. So generally I like it. It was a bit of whiplash with all the change, I think, at times, just going from buffed cards, core set, expansion, nerfs, ban, buffs. There's a lot of movement. But I think that it was probably a good thing for this expansion. I think that maybe that pace isn't necessary for every set moving forward. But again, like I said, if the result were where we are now for every expansion, I think that that's probably a good thing for the Wild format, that we're getting new cards, new archetypes introduced to the format.
Yeah. I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit. I was not as low on this as you guys were. Like, I have learned to trust the devs that, like, this is not going to be a crappy expansion, even if it is the first expansion, right? There's going to be playable stuff. It's just kind of how they've been for the past year and a half. I think, I don't remember my specific wording here, but I did, when I was going through, I do card reviews. I know you guys don't post them to YouTube, but I was going through and I was like, I remember saying that I think there were like 25 to 30 playable cards from this expansion. And that doesn't mean like really, really good broken cards, but like playable in a wide variety of archetypes, regardless of power level. And I think we've named off 25, 30 cards. I'm not saying that I'm like 200 IQ here, but I was kind of not high on the expansion like I was Skullomance, but like I knew there was going to be plenty of playable cards, and I think I was proven correct there. I think there was plenty of playable cards, and I'm looking forward to the next set, United and Stormwind, to see, how do you build off of that, right? I'm excited for that. But we're now at the point of the episode that Corbett and I are going to get laughed at, potentially, because we're going to go back and look at our predictions from prior to Fortune the Barrens. Roffle going to get off maybe a little bit easy this time, but don't worry, in a couple weeks, once they're all, all the new cards from United and Stormwind, you get to be a part of this in a couple months as well. So let's go ahead and hop into our predictions for the top 5 cards power level wise. And this is one that I think we were actually pretty spot on for this. I will give us credit for that. So my top 5 in order, I had Injured Marauder as number 5, Firemancer Flurgle as number 4, Knight of Anointment as 3, Outrider's Axe as 2, Sword of the Fallen as 1. I think all 5 of these cards still see play. Sword of the Fallen got nerfed. Firemancer Flurgle, part of the most broken combo in Wild. So I think I was pretty spot on. Corbett's wasn't too much different. Corbett's in order was Sword of the Fallen, Conviction, South Coast Chieftain, so that's the 2-mana 3/2 Murloc. If you control another Murloc, deal 2. Firemancer Flurgle, and then Injured Marauders. So I said we were going to get laughed at. I don't think we can get laughed at for our power level wise. I think we were pretty spot on with this. I don't know if we're missing anything like that we missed super obvious power wise, except for like maybe the Watch Post. But yeah. I know Corbett was high on that going into it.
Well, I'll happily assess your predictions if you'd like as a
biased third party.
Yeah, unbiased third party. I think these are pretty spot on. I think the Marauder Flurgle, many people were calling that. I don't think anybody expected it to be as strong as it is at this point. Dungeoneer helped with that. Knight of Anointment plus Conviction, those are kind of like 2 pieces to the same puzzle. And those, you each picked one of those. Those are very, very good. Outrider's Axe, I underrated significantly, and I think you both were pretty high on it. I'm surprised to not see it on Corb's list because I know out of the gate he was shoving that into a lot of decks. So, and Sword of the Fallen, was so strong that it ended up getting nerfed and is still a playable card even in Wild, despite the nerf. So I think you got that. South Sea Chieftain, definitely a staple and a big part of why Murloc Shaman is a relevant deck right now. Maybe slightly weaker than Lushwater Scout, but still, like, again, a core part of that. I think that selection could basically be any number of those Murlocs and would still be a correct choice on that. I don't know that there's anything super. I think these are some of like the best 10 cards in the expansion, right? Like, I don't think there's any arguing that. So you guys
yes,
did for the first time ever.
Yeah,
we got it right.
I mean, yeah, last time was a lot rougher. So, last time with our deck of chaos hype, and we were both so certain it was LPG 2.0 in Reno Lock. So, a little bit better this time. A little bit better.
Just a little bit. All right, let's move on to our top 5 cards that we were excited to play. So, like, for a variety of reasons. So for me, I had Scab's Cutter Butter, Field Contact, Guff Rune Totem, Varden, Dawn Grasp, and Cariel Roam. So let me just start off with the highlights, okay? Varden, Dawn Grasp, and Cariel. A lot of fun to play. Very, very powerful cards. Field Contact, pretty powerful card. A lot of fun to play. I had a lot more fun with it in Standard because I mained Miracle Rogue for about a month and a half there in Standard. That deck's not as good in Wild, but still a lot of fun to play. Scab's Cutter Butter was not fun in the way that I wanted it to be fun, but now it's coming back as Pillager Rogue. But I'm going to take that as an L just because it's not fun the way that I wanted it to be, Right. It's being used as a combo thing instead of a just big, flashy, explosive, tempo plays. But take that. And then I have to take a massive L on the chin for Guff Rune Totem. I think we made this at the time where, like, I was still super high on Token Druid and was playing it all the time because I was like, every spell in this deck is a nature spell. Guff Rune Totem, like, fits perfectly. And then it was absolutely awful, and you should never play Guff Rune Totem in your Token Druids. So
I too really wanted Guff to be a good card, and I was right there with you trying to make it work, and you just can't stick them, and, like, you don't want to save your spells because that defeats the purpose of playing the deck. So it's just like,
Yeah, people in general were very high on Guff. I remember, like, the Vicious Syndicate for Standard and Token Druid. They had it in there. They had, the same thing. It was like 4 stars, like super hype. And then after the first week, they're like, this is a mistake. This is terrible. This is like one of the worst cards that's being played right now in any deck. A lot of people got sucked into the Guff, and sadly, it didn't pay off.
Yeah, for as buff and as awesome as he is, he sucks. And Blizzard should look at buffing him the next time they do buffs. Okay.
Buff the guff.
Buff the
Hashtag
guff.
buff the guff. There it is.
True.
Yeah.
All right, Corbett. What were the top 5 cards you were most excited from Forge in the Barrens?
All right, I got refreshing spring water. Oh, I think
Puke.
I nailed that. All right, refreshing spring water, efficient Octobot, field contact, Varden, and watchpost tower. So already see a couple of the same ones that Meowth had, with field contact and Varden. We're both like LPG fans. I think in the end, Varden ended up not being as super fun. Like, I think it's fine, but it's not like my favorite thing to do in LPG. And yeah, like you said, field contact ended up being a little bit more of a standard card. Same with Octobot, where Octobot, like, I really like what I get to do. I had a lot of like enjoyment coming out of the Miracle Rogue stuff, but it just wasn't quite strong enough. But the big winners for me, the ones that I think I got pretty spot on, was Spring Water, because, you know, playing APM Mage, I was super hyped about that deck, and I played it non-stop for about 3 to 4 weeks. That was probably the most I've ever played a single deck without really switching anything. So I was super hyped about Spring Water, and that was really, really awesome. One of my favorite decks of all time. APM Mage, flame me in the comments, please. And then the Watch Post Tower. Here we go. This is the victory tour. No one was as hyped as Watch Post Tower as I was. I was determined to try and put this on my top 5 power level one, but I thought I was going to get laughed at when we did this show. I thought it was going to come in and be like, you had a Watch Post Tower in your top 5 power level? But no, I was super hyped about Watch Post. I thought it was going to be really great and played in a whole bunch of stuff. And I called it the sleeper of the set. And, well, didn't really last that long. Only got to stick around for 3 weeks because it was that much of a sleeper.
Yeah, it couldn't have been that good of a choice. I have not seen that card in weeks, so
Months even, dude. Months. I haven't seen that card in months. I'll go find the clip from that podcast episode and like put it in the video version so that you can celebrate, right? Proof that you did predict it.
And the last one is Watch Post Tower. Now, I don't even like how Watch Post Tower is designed, but I had to list it here just as an honorable mention, as like an excitement thing. I'm excited to see if it's strong or not. Like, the card itself, the card itself isn't like my favorite thing ever. But I am so hard in like Watch Post's corner. Like, I'm a complete believer in the Watch Post Tower.
Yeah, I do specifically remember you saying that I don't want to put this in my top 5 because we're going to come back in a few months and I'm going to get laughed at for putting this in my top 5 if it doesn't end up being right. So I will give you that. Far Watch Post Tower was pretty damn impactful. I will give you that.
I didn't even like the gameplay idea of Watch Post. I was just determined to have it on one of these lists. Like, just that when we came back for this show, there was some proof. But yeah.
Yeah, I was about to actually ask, like, did you actually enjoy playing with Watch Post and against it? Like, there was no way, right?
Yeah, not really. Like, they're pretty toxic. I think they generally did obviously a great thing for Wild in terms of diversifying the format. We've talked about that a lot previously, but in terms of the gameplay, it's kind of like, it's more like an ends justify the means situation, where I'm happy with what happened, even if I'm not super thrilled about, those towers.
All right, so let's move on to the last little thing that we're gonna get laughed at for. But these were the theory crafts of the decks that we were the most excited to try out from Forge in the Barrens.
Oh God!
So I'll take my losses really quick. I was really excited to try out Guff Token Druid, which was awful. All right, I was really excited to try out Libram Paladin. Libram Paladin wasn't awful, but it never really took off. Right, like it got Samuro, it got Cariel, and then you got Hand of Adal nerfed, and we're sad.
It
really needed Hand of Adal.
Yeah, it was also just kind of overshadowed by Hand Buff Paladin.
Yeah,
and it was a casualty of the Hand Buff Paladin, or the Libram Paladin strength and standard nerfs rather.
Yeah, I will say though, Libram Paladin did have its time in the sun, because I do remember climbing to top 10 legend with this deck because specifically it had a really good matchup into Hand Buff Paladin. So like I remember farming Bodybuilder and Give Me Kill with Libram Paladin, so much so that I even like convinced one of them to swap off and play Libram Paladin instead of Hand Buff. So small success stories, but in general I don't think Libram Paladin had a ton of success in the format. And then I think Corb and I are both gonna talk about this one, but we were aggro priest, like the aggro burn priest, because Leper Gnome got unnerved. We had the 3-mana 4/3 deal 3 death rattle card that was introduced in the core set. We were so hype on aggro priest and how it was gonna be like the savior of the format because it was gonna beat up on Dark Glare, and then I don't think I've seen Aggro Priest since like day 2 of the expansion.
I had a lot of fun with it. I've had viewers tell me they hit legend with it for the first time, so it's not all bad. And I think that there's some potential for maybe with the new Benedictus next month.
No. Don't you try. No, Roffle. We're not coming in here when we do this show for a couple of weeks, and like you're gonna trick me out and I into putting burn aggro priest in our list, and it'll just be a repeat every expansion.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Yeah,
it'll be a repeat until one day we're right and it ends up being good.
Exactly.
But I took my dubs here while I can. Murloc Shaman ended up being a tier 1, tier 2 deck. And then LPG Mage with Varden, DQA, Dragoncaster, New Alex. I mean, LPG, I think, has surpassed Renalock as by far and away my favorite deck of all time at this point, just because it's just so much fun. And so LPG Mage got a lot better, I guess, from the new cards plus the reverts plus the new core set, so all 3 of them. But was excited to play some LPG Mage, and it ended up being a lot of fun. All right, Corbett.
Yeah,
let's hear your L's other than Burn Priest.
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited about Baitweed, and I did have a good time. I didn't think I thought it was gonna be like amazing, but man, that deck got like destroyed once the tax pallies came around. Once people started putting in web laws and watch posts, I was just like, well, that was a fun 2 days of Baitweeding that we had, and here we go. Let's move on. But yeah, Burn Priest. Burn Priest. I was so hyped about Burn Priest. Once we saw the initial core set, I think, because I believe the 3-mana 4/3 deal 3 damage. I think that's a card that we saw very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was like really keen on Theocraft and that, and man, that did. I mean, Roffle's reporting that people are hitting legend with it, but yeah, I really thought that deck could be real. Is like one of the best burn options that we had in the format, and it just didn't really. Like, it seemed so bad. Like, I don't know. It seemed so bad. As for the others, I had Murloc Shaman and a Pirate Warrior. Those got some new cards. I was, like, very, very confident those are just going to be good decks. But overall, it mostly spoke to the fact that, like I said, I didn't know what to build. I didn't know what to theorycraft. I really was struggling when it came to the release season. And so I was just like, oh, Pirate Warrior and Murloc Shaman, they're good. And here are these Baitweed and Burn Priest. But that was it. So I never saw a lot of this stuff coming, like Cute Lock or Tax Paladin, really. Hand buff I thought would be better, but it wasn't like... I thought it was just only going to pick up a couple cards. I didn't see it becoming that. Whatever the hell that was. And so, yeah, I definitely underestimated the set. And I feel like I say this every time. It's like, every time I convince myself, oh, don't worry, the set's going to be better than you think. Like, you just got to believe. You got to like really dig in. And every single time I'm like, I just don't see very much. So let's see if I can actually be optimistic and actually work really hard at finding the good new decks and new good cards when it comes to this next expansion.
Yeah, I don't think you will. I'm going to be honest with you. You're going to default to your old ways, and you're going to be like, dude, this set sucks, man. Dark Lair's just going to be the best deck. Nothing beats it anyways. Which might be true, but yeah.
Nice insight, man. Nice insight.
I mean, if there's anything to take away from this, I think we can identify the good cards. We just can't identify the good decks. So
yeah,
take our ideas about what the good cards are, and then like be like Roffle, who takes those and makes good decks out of those, or at least fun decks out of those. I don't know.
Like Deck of Chaos Warlock, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's a fun deck. Yeah. It's fun watching all your ranks go away. Yeah, your hard-earned ranks. It's fun. It's still kind of, I mean, side tangent. The fact that it's 5 mana now and still sees 0 play just kind of speaks to like
I forgot that it got buffed.
Yeah.
I forgot. Like, I was thinking about the review and like, man, I guess 5 mana LPG just wasn't as good as we thought. Like, holy shit, that card was 6 and we still put it in our top 5? That is unreal. I mean,
so it's kind of like if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it. Like, if a card gets buffed but no one plays it, is it still really even buffed? Like, what's... Yeah. It's just not a card, unfortunately. Yet. Like, I mean, there's still hope for it.
It's our second ban in Wild, apparently. Yeah.
Never to be touched. Warlock cards.
Yeah.
All right, Roffle, you're not getting off this easily, though. Next expansion, we're going to be laughing at your losses, too, all right? You're not going to be able to just look back and laugh at how wrong we were about Burn Priest, okay?
I mean, I'm just going, like, for all 5 choices, I can make them right now. It's just Benedictus across the board. Like I don't need to see anything else.
It's the
I'm
most
already
powerful card. It's my favorite card, and it's going to be like the only deck that I'm going to play from the new expansion.
My favorite deck, yeah. And then the fact that like already announced that it's going to be one of the diamond cards. Yeah. No, this is a whole different mindset between at this stage with the Forges and the Barrens like expansion preview cycle, and now with Stormwind. And I think some of that is due to the success of Forged in the Barrens, or what I would consider a success for Forged in the Barrens, because I was kind of bummed out going in. I don't know if it was where I was creating content, but I feel like I'm in a different place, and I'm very much looking forward to United and Stormwind just based on what little we've seen already.
Yeah. I was just about to say, I was like, maybe we get some surprise reverts, like unnerfs, next week as well, so that it's really like the Forged in the Barrens experience. I highly doubt it, but I don't know.
Celestalon did joke about that on Twitter, by the way, where Alex said that we were getting priest balance changes, and Celestalon was like, he didn't say nerfs, like we could buff the class. But I don't think we're gonna be saying anything like that.
Yeah, can we buff some hunter cards just like randomly too? While we're in there,
just throw it in there for no reason.
Throw it in there. I mean, it probably won't make a difference, but you can try, right?
2-mana Tavish. Like, let's see what happens.
Yo, please no.
Unfortunately, that wouldn't do a whole lot for the good deck in the format, because you can't really make it work that well in even hunter.
Oh, that's true. The one good hunter deck in the format. You hit Legend with Reno Hunter. Wait a minute. You hit Legend with Reno Hunter. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, I just got carried by Dreadskill and Poisonous. It's really that easy.
Fair enough.
Just draw the cards consistently and
a 2-card one-sided board clear.
Yeah, who would have thought that'd be strong?
Wait, and then if you're running, it clears the entire board.
Oh, yeah, double-sided.
Yeah. Well, and then if you're running Scavenger's Ingenuity and a small allotment of beasts, it's effectively tutorable, like Ice Fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Did the copium in your voice, Roffle? Not trying to compare it to like Ice Fishing.
No, it's not copium, it's hopium. There's something there.
Oh gosh. Hunter, the Shaman wannabe. Imagine saying that 4 months ago. All right. That's going to wrap up our episode, though. I hope you guys enjoyed the Forged in the Barrens recap. And again, next week, we're going to be doing a mailbag episode because the new cards won't be here, so we have nothing to talk about. God. The fact that they're making us wait so long makes me sad. But if you guys want to get on this mailbag AMA episode, make sure you guys leave your questions down below in the comments or in the Discord. The podcast Discord server link will be in the description, or you can just add us on Twitter with your questions, and we'll make sure that we'll answer all the good ones next week. Again, it could be anything Wild Hearthstone related, or us related. I guess I'm a little bit scared to say that, but I guess it could be us related. And
even if they'll be curated, so the weird ones can just be thrown to the side. So,
but we'll still see the weird ones. That's the thing.
Send them all to Meowth.
Yeah, just don't be weird. All right, that's the thing. Just don't be weird. I know that's asking a lot, but just don't be weird, okay?
Well, I think the problem is that that's actually giving people a reason and permission to be weird now. So you've kind of done yourself a disservice. You played yourself.
Oh no, sounds like a Meow thing to do too. All right, appreciate Corbett and Roffle hanging out with me again this week. Do you guys want to let the people know where they can find you, or where they can tag you with questions for this mailbag episode next week?
Sure, you can find me at RoffleHS on Twitter and Instagram, and at Roffle on YouTube and Twitch.
And you can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Corbettgames. So come tag me and ask all the weird shit you like. I'm open to it, even if me out this.
Oh gosh, you're all right. We're gonna include some of the weird questions.
Open slather.
Yeah. Since you said that, now we're gonna include some weird questions next week. Okay, just for that. And then you can find me Twitch, Twitter, YouTube at GetMeOut. And we appreciate all of you guys for watching 53 episodes of this podcast. We really do appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening to the end, and we'll see you guys again next week.